Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the ITP Support Association convention for 2020. Our local support group meetings have been an opportunity over the last couple of years for ITP patients to share their own experiences about their ITP journey. It is my great pleasure to now be able to introduce you to long-time friend of the ITP Support Association, Mr. Anthony Hurd. Anthony is going to give us a glimpse of his own ITP journey over many years. Anthony, over to you.
Thank you, Mervyn, and good afternoon, everybody. And this is a lovely opportunity for me to explain in brief and give you a glimpse into some of the experiences I've had over the last 15 years with my ITP. What I would say right up front is that it's important to realise that we're all different, and a lot of the experiences I've had, a lot of the responses to the treatments I've had, a lot of the symptoms that I've shown over the years, and a lot of the side effects I've had from drugs may or may not be things that other people experience. We're all different, we've all got different medical histories, we've all got different backgrounds, and we will all show a variety of different symptoms. We will all respond slightly differently to treatments. We will all experience slightly different side effects. And it's important to realise that what I'm about to tell you about my own experience is just that. It's my own personal experience over the last 15 years of living with ITP. But nevertheless, I'm sure that much of what I'm about to explain will ring loud bells with lots of people, and there will be lots of parallels with my story and the stories that others have experienced during their own ITP journeys. Right up front, I can say that without doubt ITP is not a bed of roses. It's by no means plain sailing on the good ship ITP. There are lots of turbulent moments and stormy weathers along the way, but nevertheless there are also some more pleasant times and smoother parts of the journey. So here we go. From now I'll talk specifically about what has happened to me since I was diagnosed with ITP back in July 2006, when I was at that time 46 years of age. Since then, almost 15 years later, and 25% of my life now being lived with ITP, a lot of purple water has sailed under the bridge since then. I was diagnosed on an incredibly strange Friday, the 28th of July 2006, after a visit to my local family doctor, my GP. For about a year before that, I'd been suffering from random mysterious purple bruises appearing on my arms, legs, and quite often on my back without any warning. And in addition to that, the other main symptom I had was terrible tiredness, an unrelenting fatigue that was pretty much indescribable and very debilitating. So I'd had both of those mysterious symptoms for about a year before I even reported to my local doctor. I just thought it was a response to the stresses and strains of daily work and family life, but I had no idea whatsoever that there was something quite as sinister as ITP lurking in the background. So at 9 AM on the 28th of July 2006, I reported to my local doctor, thinking that it was nothing more than just being a bit under the weather. By 11 PM that strange Friday night, I was in the local accident and emergency unit awaiting my diagnosis. Unfortunately, my platelet count was just 4, and it took 6 hours of tests, numerous blood tests and other observations and tests for them to diagnosed me as an ITP patient. It was incredibly difficult to get my head around because I'd never been ill before in my life. I'd had 46 years without any medical history at all. In fact, when I was talking to the doctor in the accident and emergency unit on that fateful night of my diagnosis, I told him I didn't have any medical history. There just wasn't anything. I was a blank sheet of paper as far as the National Health Service was concerned. That was all about to change pretty rapidly. Nevertheless, after being diagnosed, I was allowed home that evening. I was packed off home with a bag full of drugs, including prednisolone, omeprazole, and alendronic acid. I'm sure those three drugs will be quite familiar to lots of ITP sufferers. I was allowed home because the only symptoms I'd ever shown were this mysterious purple bruising and tiredness. I'd never had any other bleeding or any other dangerous signs or symptoms. So the doctors felt reasonably confident that I could be allowed home, provided I was cautious and sensible over the next week or so, to allow the new drug that I'd been prescribed, prednisolone, to raise my platelet count as we'd all hope it would. I responded very well to the prednisolone, and my platelet count went up pretty quickly. In fact, within 2 weeks, I was back up to around about 100, and things seemed to be settling down okay. The only difficulty I found was getting my head around the fact that I'd been diagnosed with any illness, let alone one as potentially difficult as ITP. Having never been ill before in my life, I think it was the mental aspect of the diagnosis rather than the physical one that really got to me. I didn't really feel ill in any way apart from being quite tired, and until the prednisolone kicked in and gave me some quite difficult side effects, I actually felt quite well. Prednisolone worked well for me, but unfortunately, like most ITP sufferers, side effects soon started to take a hold. And from the summer of 2006 all the way through till the summer of 2010, I was to be on and off of prednisolone 4 times, because although prednisolone put me into remission, and I usually got about 6 months of remission every time I had prednisolone, as soon as I'd been weaned off the drug, it was pretty evident that my platelet count would fall unless I had some other treatment. So after 4 rounds of prednisolone, we got as far as the summer of 2010, and it was pretty evident that I couldn't carry on with the nasty side effects that the steroid was causing me and the potential harm it might damage me in the long term. We simply had to find an alternative treatment that might get me a remission of sensible period of time, but without the nasty side effects. The steroids, unfortunately, had given me some pretty nasty times. I'd had shingles over the Christmas of 2009. I'd had swollen knees, swollen ankles, which literally made me unable to walk for weeks on end at their very worst. And I'd had some pretty nasty moments on the steroid, as I'm sure lots of other ITP folk will understand. So come the summer of 2010, when I'd relapsed yet again from the steroid, my specialist and I had a very full and frank discussion and decided that rituximab would be the best option for me going forward. I'd already been tried on azathioprine very briefly as well before that, and had had a terrible reaction to it, so only lasted on that drug for about a week. So rituximab it was going to be, and in the summer of 2010 I took that treatment on after having a bone marrow biopsy, which still to this day remains the most eye-wateringly painful moment of my ITP career. So June 2010 I had my rituximab treatment and all went very well. I had very few side effects. My platelet count responded very quickly, and for the next 2.5 years my platelet count was at normal levels with no side effects or difficult times at all. In fact, my health was restored to pretty much pre-ITP levels. My confidence returned, my productivity and general well-being seemed to restore itself to pre-purple levels. And it was at that point that I felt able to get involved as a volunteer for the ITP Support Association, and also even run as a candidate in the local town council elections down here in Berkshire. I set about setting up the ITP Support Association social media groups and took an active part in them and still do. I wrote a number of articles to newspapers, magazines, made a lot of presentations to various audiences about my ITP experience to that date, and even made a short film for a pharmaceutical company for training purposes about ITP and my own experience with it. To cap it all, in September 2011, I also made a short presentation at the House of Commons about my ITP experience up until that time. Certainly, I could never have done any of that without the wonderful period of remission that rituximab had given me. And it certainly boosted my confidence to know that my health seemed to be holding out very well. Things apparently had returned to normal. And there was even an Olympic Games in London to look forward to in 2012 too. So things really were on the up.